How Maui went fishing. Rata sat on a branch of the Aotearoa tree, rubbing his back against the trunk, not thinking about anything. The sunlight danced on the waves far below like points of fire, while the leaves and the crimson flowers swayed gently in the breeze. Some of the branches creaked as they rubbed against each other, almost drowning the soft hiss of the little waves on the beach. Presently the boy sat up and looked round, and he heard other sounds. The women were laughing and talking as they worked in the kumara patch. Some of the men had gone into the forest to snare birds, and others were out fishing. He raised himself a little higher and saw the big canoes looking like twigs lying out on the water far beyond the headland. Nearer to him, a ridge of land stretched out like a long neck and swelled into a head fringed with the big timbers of the palisades that surrounded his father's village. On the narrow strip of beach below the pa or village, Rata heard voices. He pushed aside a branch and leaned over. Yes, there were two people there. One was a young girl. It was his sister Hine. The other was a man, tall and fat, so fat that he seemed to roll from side to side as he walked. In a flash, Rata swung off the branch and began to climb down the cliff. A shout of alarm came from the fat man. "Silly old Popo," Rata said to himself with a smile, and waved his hand. In a little while he slid onto the beach, bringing a tiny landslide of stones with him. Popo wagged his head, pretending to be angry. "It is not brave to come down the cliff like that," he said. "You think you are a warrior like your father, but you are only a silly boy bringing sorrow to your family. You will kill yourself some day." Rata caught his sister's eye and smiled. Hine had often scrambled down the steep slope with him, swinging from the roots of the trees that had burrowed through the ground and then thrust themselves out into the sunshine. "Yes, he is a foolish boy," Hine said, taking the old man's hand in hers, "but he will not come to harm. Let us forget what may never happen and come for a swim." The three of them ran down in the water and waded out until the cool waves swirled round their waists. They threw themselves forward, and the sea lifted them as they swam farther out to where a black reef of rock lay in the middle of the bay. Popo was like a fish in the water. He swam with long strokes, never hurrying. He was so fat that he rode high in the water. While Rata and Hine were still swimming, he reached the reef and began to pull himself up on the rocks. Brother and sister stopped to laugh at him. "He's just like a fish out of water," Rata said. Popo had grasped a piece of seaweed, but his hand slipped, and with a terrific splash he toppled backwards into the water. He came up quickly, laughing at himself, and soon managed to find an easier way out of the water. When Rata and Hine reached the reef, he stretched out his hands and helped to pull them up the slippery rocks. For a long while they all lay quiet in the sunshine, so that the water ran off them in little streams, and then their bodies dried and grew warm. Rata turned over on his face with his toes dabbing on a rock pool where tiny sea creatures darted to and from. His head hung over the edge of the rocks so that he couldn't see down into the clear water. Long trailers of seaweed brushed backwards and forwards as the waves surged in and rushed out of the sea again. The water heaped itself up like a moving mountain, swelling close to Rata's face. For a moment the seaweed seemed to lie still, and Rata could see down a long tunnel which grew darker until there was nothing to see but blackness. "It's like looking into a dark cave here," he said sleepily. "You can pretend that there might be anything at the bottom of it." "Perhaps there is," said Popo, who was lying flat on the back, looking over his stomach at the Poutukaka was on the cliff. "There might be another world down there." "How could there be another world?" Hine said. "Only fish live down there." "There could be lots of things down there," Popo said again. "If you look very hard, you might even be able to see a house." The children laughed at him. "No one would ever find a house at the bottom of the sea," Rata said scornfully. Popo sat up. "You children have many things to learn," he said seriously. "Why it was Maui who found a house at the bottom of the sea, and if he hadn't found the house and the big fish, he should not be sitting on the rock today. "Is it a story?" asked Hine. "Yes," Popo replied. "It is a story that you should know." With a little sigh of happiness, the children found a more comfortable position. Popo was the loveliest storyteller in the village. "Be quiet," Popo said. "This is the story of Maui and the great fish that he caught." Maui woke up very early one morning, long before the sun had risen. He crept quietly from the sleeping mat and patted his favorite fish hook. It was inlaid with mother of pearl, and deep magic lay under its polished surface. Shutting the door of the house behind him, he walked across the wet sand and climbed into his brother's canoe. He lifted the bottom board and slipped into the narrow space beneath, pulling the boards over him so that he could not be seen. Presently he heard voices as his brothers came nearer. They piled their fishing lines into the canoe and launched it into the smooth water. Then came the sound of the paddles and jeering laughter. "We have got rid of Maui, the tiny one, anyway," one of them said. "He's a nuisance. He was very angry when he woke up, and he will be very angry when he wakes up and finds we have gone without him." "Maui is not sleeping," said Maui in a deep voice. His brothers looked round in astonishment. Surely they had sounded just like Maui. That had just sounded like Maui. They peered over the side, but he was not there. "Perhaps it is a gull," one of them said, but they did not believe him. Maui, lying under their feet, laughed to himself. For a little while there was no sound except the cool splashing noise of the paddles. Then the brothers stopped. Somewhere they heard a chuckling noise. There was no birds to be seen. The sound came from under the canoe. They looked right under it, but nothing could be hid in the clear water. One of them pulled up the floorboards, and there sat Maui, grinning like a goblin. "Maui!" they all cried in dismay. "We will not take you with us. You will do something silly and spoil our fishing." "Oh yes, you will take me," Maui said. "No, there is plenty of time. We will go back and put you ashore." Maui frowned. "It is too late, brothers," he said. "Look behind you." They turned round and looked in astonishment because there was no land to be seen. All they could see was the great ocean and the sun shining on the empty waters. Maui grinned again. "Now you can see that nothing will stop me," he said. "I have brought my magic fish hook, the one made from the jawbone of my grandfather." He lifted it up and turned it till it flashed in the sunshine. "Magic runs through it when I hold it," he said. "It has stretched out the ocean. Look, it leaps in my hand. Today will be lucky for fishing, brothers. Take up your paddles." The sun was high when Maui, who had been sitting on the floorboards holding the magic fish hook to his ear as if he could hear it speak, called to his brothers to stop paddling. "Here is the place where we shall get a good catch. Throw out your lines." The brothers were too frightened to say anything. They baited their hooks and lowered them into the water, and in a little while a pile of shining fish lay in the canoe. "This is very good, Maui," said the eldest. "You have brought us to a good place. Now we shall go home." "Oh no," Maui replied. "Now it is my turn. Give me some bait." "No, we will not give you any bait," they all cried together, because they were afraid of what he would do next. Maui said nothing. He made a gash in his arm, and when the blood flowed, he smeared it over the white bone hook and lowered it into the water. Down, down, down went the hook at the end of the flax line. At first they could see it gleaming in the water like a moonbeam, and then it slipped out of sight. At last the line went slack, and Maui pulled it gently. The line grew taut. "Ha! I have caught a fish," he shouted. "Now you will see the fishing of Maui, the little one." Farther under the water, in the world where the sea god lives, the sacred fish hook had called in the doorway of the house of Tonganui, the son of the sea god. "Ah, my children, that was where Tonganui lived. He and all his people never dreamed that Maui's white hook would come stealing through the shadowy water from the world of air and fire above the sea." Maui took the strain on his line. He braced his feet on the sides of the canoe and pulled out all his might until Tonganui's house groaned with the strain. There was a sudden jerk as Maui pulled the house up from the seabed, and with it came a great piece of land. Maui sang a magic song that makes heavy weights light. His brothers drove the paddles deep into the water. The flax cord and the white hook sank as they lifted up the house of Tonga. It came close to the surface, and then the carved wooden figure on top jumped out of the water like a fish. Maui kept on pulling. The house rose above the water. There was the magic hook held tight in the doorway. Then came the land underneath, shining like a great fish, with its tail stretching far away to where the sky meets the sea. It was Maui's fish. "Stay here," Maui said to his brothers. "Don't make a sound. The sea god is angry because I have stolen the house of his son." I must make peace with him. When I come back, we will share this fish of mine." He ran along the back of the fish. Maui's brothers could hardly believe what they had seen. "It's real," one of them said. "See, it's a great land that our little brother has found." Ah, smooth and bright and shining was the land that Maui pulled from beneath the sea. On it were houses and smoking fires. Birds were singing and streams were chattering down its sides. "This piece belongs to me," one of the brothers shouted. "No, it's mine," cried another. "I shall take this bit," said a third. They all jumped out of the canoe and ran about to the land, slashing it with their weapons. The great fish felt their running feet and woke from sleep. It tossed on the water, and its smooth surface was ruffled and broken into valleys and mountains. Maui was angry when he came back, but it was too late. If they had left it alone, it would be smooth to this very day. It happened long, long ago. This fishing of Maui, if you could climb up to the fish heaven and look down on our land, you would see that it is the shape of a fish. Far away in the south is its head. Far away in the north is its tail. In the middle is Taupo Moana, its heart. This is our country, our great fish of Maui. And that is the end. Thank you for listening.